We back on the TYT Sports. We have to go back down a road of an unhappy clip, to say the least. So I did a story yesterday on the athletes' response to Charlottesville, and then Rick and I did a live stream where we talked a little bit more about Charlottesville, but also in relation to Michael Bennett and Marshawn Lynch not taking a knee, just not standing for the national anthem. One of the things that I really enjoyed that I wanted to bring you into the conversation with, because France has been talking about Colin Kaepernick for, I don't know, a year, Facebook videos. So go over to the Young Turks Facebook page or France's Facebook page, and you can see a handful of very entertaining but also very important videos. If you agree with that point of view. If not, I'm
sure they'll write that in the comment.
So be it. So be it. But what's interesting is Marshawn Lynch and Michael Bennett make their move and they take their stand, figuratively speaking. And it was one of the first times I saw, there was a Sports Illustrated article and it said something along the lines of, here are the 4 reasons as to why they're doing this and the context you need, and it was well written. And it wasn't anything to do with, nope, praise the NFL, these guys are assholes and distractions. And I couldn't help but think after reading that and also relating it back to Charlottesville that still missing the point. And you have far more information as to why people keep missing the point.
I don't even think it's not even that complex. It's just, it's selective outrage, which I've constantly said.
Why do people make it because this huge complex thing when it's pretty black and white in this case?
Exactly, that's why, is because
pretty black and white, it's like, very black and white.
It's black and white because of the way that historically it is been deemed wrong for black Americans to voice their concern about the way the country's run. So still to this day, there is a lot of Americans out there, and some of them, I'm going to get to the 2 parts of it, that will be more outraged at Marshawn Lynch taking a seat or Colin Kaepernick taking a knee than they will be at neo-Nazis in the street flying Nazi flags alongside Confederate flags and claiming to be patriots. People will then, next level from that, not as much as those ones that don't even deserve your breath to try and debunk the fact that you're equating both of those, but those that will say, well, both of them annoy me. As soon as you do that, you also sympathize with them because you equate them both as a protest. One of them, whether you agree or not with how they do it, which is fine, you can disagree with how they protest, but one of them is protesting, in their view, the unlawful killing of Americans. The other is promoting or celebrating a group that committed mass genocide and uphold ethnic cleansing and wanting to just have whites remain superior. So how can you equate both of them? Because in your mind, they're points of protest. Equating them humanizes a Nazi movement. Equating them gives them a sense that they have a place and that they're protected by the First Amendment. Now, this is another point. This whole free speech argument that has been thrown around and wrapped in this sense of patriotism, that it's the most American thing that you can say or do what you want. Well, how about you go to Germany, the country that was a huge part of obviously what was going on at that time. It is not allowed to fly a swastika in Germany because it does not uphold their values of that country, and it could get you in a lot of trouble by doing so. But in America, this whole free speech conversation, yes, there is a lot of people that are shut down and should not be shut down. Like there's a lot of conservatives, I think, not allowed to speak on college campuses. I think that's ridiculous. Let them speak, just don't go. But when you try to use the free speech argument to defend people just inciting hatred and disgusting acts, it's not the same thing, it's false equivalence. So by saying that a Black Lives Matter protest or anti-fascists, it's in their name. They're standing against fascism. That's exactly what they're doing. So to try to basically equate both of them, you're making it seem that Nazism in 2017 has a right to have an opinion in a way. So when you move that over to sports, it's the exact same thing. When you see people who will almost turn a blind eye, I'm not saying they agree with it, but they'll just be like, oh, Nazis, man, they just have their point of view and they think that it's still prominent because they're emboldened. But then when you get a president come out and say it's hate on all sides, it gives them a space to think that, okay, well, we're not being directly singled out, so maybe we can continue to move forward in this. And then you get Marshawn Lynch and Michael Bennett taking a stand, and people will turn around and say, well, those guys are disrespectful. Like you mentioned there, like Jeremy Roenick, who is obviously a legend in hockey, comes out, right? And if you look at his thread, he didn't have one tweet on Charlottesville, not one, until someone came at him after he talked. He said Marshawn Lynch should have stayed retired. Someone came and went, "What are you doing? Like, did you just see what happened in the country?" Marshawn Lynch is, of course, responding to that and saying that he does not believe the country upholds the values that many people claim it does. So he has a right to protest. You voicing your outrage at him doing that, but remaining silent until someone called upon him, just shows this false outrage wrapped in patriotism that is so paper thin.
Then he started to, him and Jermichael Finley, who started to speak out on Twitter, they started to delete, which, look,
it shows that you didn't give a lot of thought into what you're doing.
If you're going to delete a tweet, it shows that you made your mistake. Maybe say something else, because look, Twitter's, you've also talked about this, and I wasn't necessarily 100% on board with this opinion until Saturday. Twitter's the worst place 15 minutes after any tragedy. You have groups of people who, look, there's nothing wrong with saying the simple tweet of what happened on Saturday was tragic. Like, there's people who take those tweets down a peg and say, you're not helping anything by saying that. Like, Twitter is just an open place for you to say what you want on the internet. Like, there's nothing wrong with saying it was a tragedy or you feel horrible or your heart and your prayers and all of that go to them. Does it help those people? No, of course not, but it's meaningless in the scope of things.
Yeah.
So it's not what people should be focused on. And that's what also led to I was saying yesterday about the Stan Verrett and Jason Whitlock feud is like the social justice warrior movement, which, you know, there's different opinions on that. And also you got people like Dinesh D'Souza who push his book in light of the tragedy, which is the worst thing I could think of. I was telling you about a couple hours after it happened, I sent you the text with Jon Stewart's thing from 2014, which was it was the Charleston church shootings. How we spend trillions of dollars overseas to protect the country. We spend trillions of dollars on defense budget in the military to make sure that radical Islamic terror doesn't get into our country. And when the Charleston church shootings happened, that was a symbol for Black Americans in this country. It stood there for years in the heart of its town that had, as Jon Stewart said, Confederate roads named after Confederates, libraries named after Confederate soldiers. Like, that's a problem. And he claims, and I agree with it more now than ever, nothing's changed. If you look up that video now, it still applies exactly what happened on Saturday. There's a gaping racial wound that will not heal in this country. And as he said, sadly, nothing will change.
Yeah.
He goes, nothing will change because they're out of words as to what to do and try to find these solutions. So when you have this group that's empowered by what has happened and it releases statements that he didn't denounce us even 3 days later, and then you get the contradicting opinion of others saying, oh, there's nothing our president could do that won't make people happy. You do speak from a moral high ground. You are supposed to lead in that sense. There is a right thing to say and a wrong thing to say, and he chose the wrong thing to say. So I don't still at this point now, if you still think Colin Kaepernick is disrespectful to the military, to the country, and Marshawn Lynch is disrespectful, and the best thing about this is with Michael Bennett, I promise you, and the Seahawks are definitely more liberal leaning than a lot of other organizations. You know, they had their stance. Pete Carroll has always been the players coach. Nah, man, do you? Which is, by the way, he's also a Super Bowl winning coach, and he possibly threw away a Super Bowl too. But that's all besides the point. The point I'm trying to make with Michael Bennett, he's too good of a defensive end. So he's protected by his value as a player, which is a mighty hypocrisy when it comes to the sport. Because if it was, you know, maybe I'm just trying to think of any name, but I'll just make up a name. Maxwell Bennett, the third brother who doesn't exist, who is just, you know, a 65 rated Madden player type of, he's not that fast off the end.
Dispensable,
which is just wrong because athletes are also humans. They have the exact same right and entitlement to their freedom of speech that so many people want to protect. So when I see stick to sports, it irks me.
Yeah,
it irks me because there is some things that are more important than sports. If you want to talk about certain policies, healthcare in America, I can understand why you want to separate those two.
Of course.
But you want to talk about something that happened on Saturday that still sits with you in the wrongest way possible because it just makes you feel uncomfortable and wrong and there's a little bit helpless. I don't know what else to tell the opposing viewpoint besides I hear you, but I don't think you're right.
Yeah, and for those that will come to our comment section and they will, in their way, have their own opinion, which is fine, and they'll say, I hate when you guys bring politics in. Surely it's now to the point that you understand that there is a lot of times that you can't separate both, specifically when we talk about the NFL. And surely, again, I'm just praying to God that some people will start to see the light and the hypocrisy. Whether you believe Colin Kaepernick is a good enough player to be given a contract, those statistics have already been debunked that he is in comparison. We're not saying he's a starter. We're not saying that he is the most phenomenal quarterback in the league. No one's ever said that. No. We're just talking about the sheer treatment.
He's good enough.
And what you mentioned, I wanted to just piggyback on it, is this whole idea that sports personalities and athletes have to stick to what they're doing. That is absolutely absurd. It's the same argument that get put forth to like actors and musicians. Some of the best work that has ever been created has been infused by political grievances and things that go on in life. That is what art and performance and everything is. So to get mad at someone like Colin Kaepernick for speaking his outrage and using the term, which I quote from a conservative pundit, he was exempt from oppression because he made money. Oh shit, that's it. They solve racism, make money. LeBron James won't feel hurt about the N-word being sprayed across his house because he made money. And those 20s wipe away that pain and that oppression. Don't be so close-minded and ridiculous. Regardless of whether you make $19 million or whether you make $19 a week, racism still exists and no one in this country is exempt from it unless we start to face it head on. And unless we start to support, you don't have to agree, again, with what Michael Bennett or Marshawn Lynch is doing. But if you're voicing your outrage at what he's doing, you better speak up on Charlottesville or Philando Castile or Terrence Crutcher, because it's the exact same recycled outrage that I seen last year from Trent Dilfer, from Rob Lowe, from Kate Upton. The people that were so irked to comment on Colin Kaepernick, but I looked and I researched their timeline and I never seen anything on black lives being gunned down in the street. I never seen any conversation about that. So once again, it's just a recycled argument that is summed up by our good friend, hockey player, I'm forgetting his name,
Jeremy Roenick.
Jeremy Roenick, who's, again, that is echoed throughout many people's opinion, that they're so outraged that these guys taking a seat or a knee for the national anthem, but they haven't said anything on the atrocities as to why these people are making these actions. And that, to me, is one of the most apparent problems in America. People respond instinctively to what they're seeing and do not understand why.
Well said. Comment below if you will. It gets dangerous down there. But if, again, like I said in yesterday's clip too, we're not overloading you guys with this stuff. It's right in the title. If you don't want it infused, but you want to come watch us, skip the video. We hope you at least listen to the opinion. If not, leave a mean comment. We won't mind it.